Jam Global Radio. This is Clarity.
Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
I want to say another big good evening going out to you, wherever you may be across the universe. It's Saturday night, 6 o'clock, which could only mean one thing.
I paid for my crime.
Issues today on World Jam Global Radio.
Did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Back in the day, I didn't really care about the...
On a week where, or on a day where it's the 5th of November, it's the Million Mass March, as Anonymous marches across the world,
I learned my lessons in the street.
making their statements and their feelings known and heard.
Very quick on my feet. I was swimming in women. I had girls all over the street.
On a week where Trump and Clinton look almost neck and neck,
It's been rearranged.
and I'm even more confused than I've ever been as far as American politics is concerned.
It's too short to spend it all in jail.
On a week where Brexit is back in the headlines, and the British government has been told that they cannot initiate this exit without a vote from Parliament. My gosh.
I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
On a week where Dakota Standing Rock is hot on the press, yet silent on the TV screens of the United Kingdom
Supply. I'm not proud of what I
and most of the world.
my story to you and you.
Shockingly,
I must admit, I was doing all kind of stupid shit.
we're here for another edition of Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio.
If I used to live, I wouldn't do it again. I was young and dumb. My brain was so numb. I was a real Forrest Gump. But I was
Once again, I want to say a big thank you going to our backroom staff,
the real Terminator.
producers,
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
producer in particular, Teresa Ashton,
Like a real alligator, especially all you haters.
The opening statements are going on right now. He could be facing life in prison.
We have with us
Already did my time. Paid for my crime.
special guests David Stinson,
My time.
alongside my co-host, Shotgun Rider, and dear friend Dr. David Rumey.
Paid for my crime.
Today's show, Two Wrongs Don't Make a Right.
Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime. Pay for my crime.
And you know, the funny thing is, we're hearing it so much nowadays, and we've done several shows where we're talking about individuals that have spent almost a lifetime in jail for crimes that no evidence in a normal court of law could find anybody guilty.
Statewide, world.
David Shelton is just one of those cases, and we're going to look deep and hard into that today
I was swimming in women. I had girls
through the voice of his son,
getting money.
David Stinson.
Now things have changed. The whole game has been rearranged.
David has spent 23 to 24 years of his life in jail.
It ain't about being no gangster. Life is too
The
short.
majority of this young man's life.
Trying to cope with this living hell. Already did my time. I paid for my crime.
And he spent a lifetime trying to set his father free.
I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my crime. Already did my time. I paid for my
Please don't forget that next week we've got Gilda Baker with us.
time. I paid for my crime. I wasn't drinking.
Another feature of police brutality.
Got how on my own.
Her son shot dead.
Proud of what I had to do. That's why I'm
We're going to be taking a look at that. And here's one for the future, and I've got to tell you, I am so excited about this show. November the 26th, 8 p.m. GMT.
live. I wouldn't do it.
You just really got to put this one on your calendar.
I was a real fool.
We are going to Standing Rock, Dakota.
The kid had a lot in common. I was the real Terminator, much meaner than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Where we're going to be looking at
Like a real alligator, especially all you hate.
this pipeline
Already did my
that they're looking to plow through the land of the indigenous people.
time. Already did my time.
History repeating itself over and over again.
The opening statements are going
How
on
much
right
more
now.
will they take without asking?
Life in
That's on the 26th of November. That's going to be a big show, let me tell you. Keep your eyes peeled for future promos. But for today, my friends, we're going to Detroit, Michigan, where we'll be talking to David Stinson, the son of David Shelton, who has been serving 23 to 24 years a life sentence. It's a living hell.
I paid for my crime.
But in the meantime, it's time to hear from my dear friend,
How would it be
the one and only, the irrepressible Dr. David Ramey.
Give us this day.
Hello, Curvin.
Hello, David. How are you, my friend?
Well, I'm in Connecticut. The colors are gorgeous. We're having what we call, I don't know if we can say it anymore. I used to call it an Indian fall, but I think it's a Native American fall now because the colors are gorgeous. Jewels draping from the trees like sapphires and rubies and emeralds and yellow diamonds and crystals. Unbelievable. And the sky is blue. The ocean is cold. People fishing, running, playing in about 65 degrees of unusually warm weather for November. And it's a paradise. So I don't have much to complain about in terms of my environment. On the other hand, there's a maelstrom of evil in America. The FBI has gone rogue on us. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is the closest thing we get to a national police force in our country, has become a Trump festival. It has become a Gestapo for the Trump forces. The FBI director, James Comey, a Republican, appointed, I cannot imagine why appointed, but appointed by a Democrat to be the FBI director, has now basically endorsed Hillary Clinton, has allowed his rogue agents to do everything in the world to leak information to harm her and her chances of being president. And on top of that, he has defied the Department of Justice and the Attorney General in terms of letting out information without any proof to damage an innocent American, namely Mrs. Clinton. And it is a disgrace. It reminds me of the Hoover days when J. Edgar Hoover did all he could to tape record and leak information about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., how he called Dr. King a pervert and all kinds of names like monkey and gorilla and watermelon eating traitor. We've come back to that time in our history, and it's a very, very dark moment. But I believe that the FBI director will have to resign after the election because he has not kept his oath to do all he can to preserve and defend the Constitution of this country. And above all, that means the government restricts itself, according to our Constitution, from interfering in the private lives and correspondence of Americans, and in particular does not bring about insinuations of illegal activity when those activities do not exist. Now, beyond that, we've got Donald Trump. And I know he's getting more attention. We talked earlier in Europe. Somebody's typing. But let me say very clearly, Donald Trump is a very dangerous man. When I taught at the university, I taught leadership in medicine. I taught doctors how to be good, moral people. I taught doctors that they are not gods, that they think sometimes they have life and death in their own hands. But doctors do not save lives and they do not take lives. Doctors merely help God in that decision process. Now, let me say Donald Trump lacks the absolute fundamental requirement for all people who want to be leaders, and that is integrity. He must have integrity. But this man goes on in his lies about everything regarding this election. He lies about Mrs. Clinton. He lies about the president. He lies about the economy. He lies about unemployment. He lies about racism. And he lies about absolute fundamental aspects of his own personality. This man says he respects women more than any man alive. And yet he says he likes to grab them by their genitalia. He likes to hump them like bitches. He likes to F pregnant women. He likes to rape married women because they're used to it anyway. This is a disgusting human man. This man is so unworthy of the presidency that he arouses in those of us who have any semblance of love for justice and truth to revolt from our most inner core against a man like that, even attracting one vote in our country. And yet, he is attracting tens of millions of votes. It is now okay in America to admit you're a racist. It's okay in America to be endorsed by the KKK and their grand wizard, the mother of all racism in this country. It is okay to lie about knowing more than the admirals and the generals, even though Donald Trump is a draft dodger. As a veteran of the United States Army, I can tell you, there is little regard I have for anyone who lies about being a draft dodger. Now, there is nothing wrong with not wanting to be in the Army. There is nothing wrong with that. There are other ways, and good ways, and equally important ways to serve our country than going into the military services. But Donald Trump was a draft dodger 5 times because his father was wealthy. He says he is the greatest sportsman of all time, that in the 1960s he was the greatest baseball player alive. Psychological, pathological liar. And yet he was unable to go to Vietnam because he had a bad foot. How are you the greatest baseball player and athlete alive if you can't go to Vietnam because of a sore foot? There are 58,000 men's names on the walls of the Vietnam War Memorial. All those men, 95%, far, far poorer than Donald Trump's worst day alive, gave their blood for this country. And now Donald Trump uses veterans and the American flag and military recipients of the Medal of Honor to prove his own patriotism and courage. This man is the very definition of what we call stolen honor. Stolen honor. This man is unworthy to find himself on the backside of a skunk married to a porcupine going backwards. He's a prickly, stinking piece of excrement. Now, let me say this. Harry Fleischer, one of the most rabid pro-Iraq war Bush sycophants, has come out in the Washington Post today and said he cannot vote for Donald Trump. President Bush the senior said he will not vote for Donald Trump. Mrs. Bush, Barbara, and Laura have both said they will not vote for Donald Trump. The governor of Ohio said he will never vote for Donald Trump, and he didn't. No decent American who loves this country can or will vote for Donald Trump. But the sad, sad part of it is there are so many who are willing to do so, knowing he is a racist, a bigot, a homophobe, a coward, a liar, a bankrupt, salivating piece of rabid excrement from the backside of a hyena, too cowardly to eat a lion's tail from a dead elephant. This man is an atrocious dealer of lies. He is a monkey's pick He's not worthy to be in the Boko Haram's ugly harem. He is a disgusting human being. Now, last night, Jay-Z and Beyonce gave a beautiful concert for Mrs. Clinton. Beyonce wore a pantsuit. This morning, Donald Trump came out and said, did you hear that Jay-Z gave a concert for Hillary? Can you believe Jay-Z's language? He is a foul-mouthed person. He uses bad words. This is from the man who called some people in New Hampshire pussies. This is the man who says, I like to grab women in their pussy. This is the man who says, I like to, quote, fuck married women. This is the man who says, I like to hump her like a bitch. Do you understand the psychological aspects of a schizophrenic, pathological liar with his finger upon the nuclear codes of the United States of America? A man who says he knows more than all the admirals and the generals combined, and Obama is a weakling in the very week that our admirals and generals and Obama have reconquered Mosul in Iraq and are on their way to finally defeating ISIS. Do they understand that when the president was told by Congress and the British Parliament they would not support him in punishing Assad in Syria for crossing the red line, that the president had no choice, because you can never take this country to war without the approval of Congress? They criticize Donald Trump, and Republicans criticize the president of the United States for not going to war and not violating the Constitution, not violating the law, and knowing that his hands were tied by the very Republicans today who say, look, he was a chicken. The president was not a chicken. The president did exactly what the law requires. And that is to be honored, because we know that Donald Trump will not do that. Donald Trump has not revealed his income taxes, has not revealed how he knew information from the Russian secret services before anyone else did, has benefited from the leaks of WikiLeaks and the Russian KGB leader, Putin. Let me tell you something. I want all of you to think for a second. All of you, think seriously. I put you in a boxing arena, and I put Muhammad Ali. You know, Muhammad Ali floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee. Muhammad Ali. Let me tell you, I put Kervin, my co-host, my great friend, in a boxing arena to fight Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali. And I nail your feet to the floor. I tie your hands behind your back. And I put blinders over your eyes. And then Muhammad Ali comes out and beats you to a pulp. And then I go and write in the papers that you're a weakling, you're a coward, you couldn't fight, and you're a fraud because you told everybody you could stand Muhammad Ali and beat him. That is exactly the case with Hillary Clinton. The Republicans said, their man who was going to be the Speaker of the House, McCarthy from Florida, under John Boehner, said, we set up the House hearings on Benghazi and the Clinton Foundation for the sole purpose to bring down Hillary's poll numbers, to make her unacceptable to the American people. That's why we did it. And they all went along with it, spending government money to do it. And then WikiLeaks gets all this stolen information by the Russian Soviet forces, and then they leak it all, but they don't leak anything on Donald Trump. And then Donald Trump comes out with his Republican cohorts and tell all these lies. And then they leak all of John Podesta's and Donna Brazil's and the DNC's stolen information. WikiLeaks, Putin, Trump, the U.S. Congress, and the Republicans They have all come at Hillary, whose feet are nailed to the floor, hands tied behind her back, and eyes blindfolded, and then they say she's corrupt. Let me tell you something. If ever I were to choose a leader, I would choose that leader who had the whole world come against her in their filth, arrogance, and lies, in their theft, cheating, and murders, and see that she is standing. And I would say, that is a woman. That is a leader. That is a great person. Because let me tell you, if you tell Donald Trump that you don't like the way his hat looks on his dumbass orange pumpkin head, he will have a freak attack. And he will say things about you and declare war on you. This is the man who said he would carpet bomb innocent women and children. This is the man who said he will bring torture, illegal torture, back to the world. This is the man who didn't pay people, common people, house cleaners, maids, lawn caretakers, architects, engineers. He didn't pay them for the work they did. This is a man whose own wife came to this country illegally. And the Washington Post and New York Times reported it today, and worked without a permit. She was an illegal alien in his own definition. And he wants to ship back all the people from Mexico and Colombia, Venezuela, and Japan. But he doesn't want to ship back his own wife, does he? No, because the law doesn't apply to Donald Trump. The Constitution is unknown to Donald Trump. Decency is unknown to Donald Trump. A sense of faith and fairness and a good sense of values and a moral compass are unknown to Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is like the North Pole. When you're at the North Pole, your compass is no good. The magnetic forces of the North Pole keep it turning like a minute hand on a clock. It just goes tick, 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 tick. It never points north, south, direct, west, or east, because there is no north, south, east, or west. And that is the problem with Donald Trump. His compass is like a magnetic compass on the North Pole. He has no sense of direction. And whatever he does is to go in a huge circle of infamy, the infamy of narcissism and greed and sexual lust and a debauching of all that we value as decent human beings. Hillary is not perfect, nor was Abraham Lincoln, and nor was George Washington. Most people are not perfect, excluding Donald Trump and his own orange melon. But let me tell you this. Hillary will not destroy the world. Hillary will not do things irrational. Hillary will not take revenge on people. And how do we know this? Because for 30 years, Hillary has given her life to give medical care to children, food to the poor, clothing to the naked. She has fought for women and men and gays and blacks and Asians and Mexicans. Her whole life has been dedicated to the service and for the health and well-being of other human beings. And she has never once taken revenge on those haters who did all within their power to destroy her, her husband, and even her daughter. But we know Donald Trump's record. And so we come down to this on Tuesday, when Americans have to go into the voting poll and they have to ask themselves one question: do I believe that all people are in the image of God made, rich or poor, pretty or ugly, fat or skinny, black or white, Asian or Indian, South American or Swedish? Do I believe that God created all humans in his image? And if you answer yes to that, then you vote for Hillary Clinton or someone else. But if you say no to that, if you don't believe that, if you believe white people are better, if you believe rich people know more, if you believe a narcissist who loves himself can love you, then you pull that Donald Trump lever. And when you do, don't ever talk to me again. Because to me, you're a piece of dreck. And that's the way it is in Connecticut today.
Ooh, well, David, I'm not sure whether to call that a tame or a controlled version of the dump on Trump session that I was anticipating. But yeah, there were some names in there that I wouldn't want to be called in my worst nightmare. And that says it all. And funny enough, as you should, be featuring on Donald Trump right now, in the UK, as I've already said, that they're beginning to profile the US elections as it's drawing to its crescendo on November the 8th. And they've been following both Hillary and Donald Trump. There's a lot of news coverage on that right now, and people in the UK are beginning to talk about it without actually knowing how we actually got there. But Donald Trump ain't been shown in a very favourable light. And let me just say this very, very quickly before we move on to our treasured guest, David Stinson, who is patiently waiting to talk about the case of his father. But just before we do that, I've watched Donald Trump on TV for weeks. But recently, especially this week, as I've watched him doing his rallies and I cannot, for the life of me, understand how anybody can see an ounce, a shred of humanity in this man. And even as he speaks, he makes me squirm in my seat because I look at him and I think, what a plump head. I mean, look at that face, all squished up and squashed up. You got to imagine all the crap that's piled into that. Well, you don't, because every time he opens his mouth, that crap comes pouring out. And I haven't heard a word of credible evidence to suggest that this man has the criteria or the credentials to actually lead a company, let alone a great country like the United States of America. So I stand with David on that. If you press that button and you vote for Trump, then you're voting against me. And you need to delete me as a friend of yours because I want nothing to do with you. And that's how I feel about Donald Trump in America today. And let's quickly move on to our friend and our dear guest. And before I introduce David Shilton, let me just say that David Stinson. Let me just say this. And I'm reading from an article that he sent me, so these are not my own words. But his father, David Shelton, has been in prison for more than 23 years for crimes that he did not commit, sentenced to 40 to 60 years. The jury never saw evidence that proves David, aged 27 at the time, could not have committed the crimes. And just to give you a couple of pointers for you to think about before David comes in and starts talking himself, I'm just going to raise a couple here. DNA evidence found in one victim's home and found in the mask that both victims said the criminal wore rules out all, let me underline all, African-American, including David. Well, that just blows my mind. Neither victim could identify David out of a lineup. And third, one victim originally stated that the perpetrator was a white man. I've seen this happen before. We're going to talk about that in a short while, but first and foremost, let me introduce our guest, David Stinson. David, are you there, my friend?
Yeah, I'm here.
Man, oh man. In a very short moment, we're going to talk about how we got here. But first, introduce yourself to our audience. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do, and why you've chosen to be the voice of your father.
Okay, well, first, let me say that was a funny introduction by Mr. David Romney.
he don't worry, he gets it every week, and he gets my vote every week.
Well, wait, what was funny about it?
well.
You mean it was pleasing?
Very pleasing.
Let me put words in your mouth. I never mind doing that.
But my name is David Stinson, and I'm here to speak about my father's wrongful conviction He left where he got incarcerated when I was very young. Actually, I was 4.5 years old. So, I do have memories of him, but I was very, very young, as you can see. So, but things, I did, my family did tell me things about him, as far as that, he was there for me. He, actually, my mother, when I was first born, she left for the Army, and he actually moved in with my grandmother to help take care of me while my mother was on leave. So, those things I didn't remember, but my family and, my father, told me those things. So, so I did get to spend some time with him. And as far as the crime he's being accused of, it just doesn't add up to the person that he was, because he didn't have problems attracting women, and for this type of case, that people couldn't believe that he was accused of something like this when there was no need for him to do anything of this nature, because he didn't have a problem with getting women. So that's just the gist of it. Like I said, I got a lot of evidence, proving that he was wrongly convicted. So
here's the thing, David. Before we start going into the evidence, let's just build ourselves up a little bit of picture. Here you are. How old are you now?
I'm 28.
Okay, so 28, and he's already been in prison for 24 years now. So going on 24 years. So nearly all of your life, you've had to grow up with this. What's it been like growing up without a father, and not just growing up without a father, without a father present, knowing that it's not his choice not to be there, and that he's in prison for such a heinous crime? Because these types of crimes, they have their labels, right? And if he was, for example, if he was serving time for a bank robbery or gangland murder, I'm not saying that would be good, but that probably wouldn't have the same tag as a sexual assault, right? So how has it been for you growing up with the stigma that comes with having your father incarcerated for such a long length of time over a crime that carries that kind of a label and stigma?
As you can imagine, it's been hard. I had to teach myself. My mother did the best that she could, but as they say, a woman can't raise a man. So after I got to a certain age, I had to, figure things out on my own. And, I really didn't have that male figure growing up that, could show me and lead me the way. I learned, I did it on my own. So, and then, as you say, the kind of crime my father was convicted of, it just wasn't a good look, a rapist, because people see that and automatically just think he's a monster, not knowing the full story. They just going off of assumptions or what they might have heard, but they don't know, the DNA showed that he's innocent, all those things. So, yeah, but it was rough, growing up, and especially in the inner city, like Detroit. It's you need somebody, a male figure to, kind of take you under his wing and teach you things, But like as I said, it's okay, because I made it, but it was hard.
What was school like? Did you get called names? Did people was it people, your friends at school, people at school, were they aware of it? What about their parents? Were their parents aware of it? Did you find yourself alienated anyway because of that?
Oh no, I fit in well at school. That's a problem I didn't have. I never was bullied. I never was made fun of. I always was in the in crowd, so that wasn't too hard. But some parents who did, like a couple of my friends' parents, I told them about what happened to my father, and they didn't pass judgment. So, I never went through any of that.
Okay, so here we are now.
Can I
Yeah,
let me ask you, David? I'm sure that you are fortunate in one aspect, in that when your father was convicted 24 years ago, the internet and the harsh environment of the hatred we find in social media and assumptions of guilt and horror were not extant at that time. Had it happened today with the social media, I doubt your mother and you could have remained in your neighborhood. I doubt you could have gone to school. I doubt you could have ever given your name to anyone. So in that sense, it was fortunate that it happened 24 years ago. And in another sense, it's not. But let me ask you this too, in reference to what Kervin said. Do you not think that your mother has the ability to raise you? Because there are many young men, and I ask this as a social question, who do have fathers, and their fathers are drug addicts or drunks or very abusive. They beat the children. They don't set an example. Would it not be better not to have a father than to have one in your home of that nature? So I would just suggest to you that you might consider you didn't really lose out as much as you might imagine not having a father home. And that's no aspersion upon your father, but more of a credit to your mother, because you sound like a very loving, good person.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No. My mother, she definitely, she definitely gets, I tip my hat off to her every chance I get, and my father knows that, it's just some things I feel growing up in the inner city that she just, she couldn't teach me, that's all. But she definitely did her best.
Let me just say this, and we'll get right back on track. The reason I brought that up is because this week a student who went to the University of Pennsylvania, which is one of our top schools in America, with Donald Trump Jr., said that when Donald Trump Jr. was a freshman, he was a roommate of this boy. And this boy wrote, who's now a man, wrote in the Miami Herald newspaper that one time Donald Trump, the multimillionaire developer, came to pick up his son from the college to go and see a Yankees baseball game. And his son appeared at the door wearing, Donnie Trump Jr., wearing a Yankees jersey, not a suit and tie, but a Yankees jersey, like any normal kid would do. And Donald Trump looked at him and slapped him so hard across the face, he fell over onto the floor. And then he said, "Put on a suit and tie and meet me in the limo." And he walked out the door. You see, having a father isn't always a blessing.
Very true.
Well,
very
yeah. True. Well, and if in that aspect, I can agree. But I don't think my father.
No, he wouldn't.
Would have been that type of a father. But I know, some fathers, it is best that some fathers are not in their children's life,
Yeah,
but,
I'm just saying, don't miss out on what you didn't know. In my case, when I was born, my father thought of me so badly, he tied a stake to my leg to get the dog to play with me.
Wow. Well, yeah.
Right. Let's try and what I want to try and do now is just paint out the story as we know it. I don't want anybody listening to what we're doing and what we're saying to think for 1 minute that we don't have any respect or regard for the victims of a very serious crime. That's not what we're saying here. And the reason why we've entitled the show "Two Wrongs Don't Make a Right" is because what happened to these victims was wrong, but jailing the wrong man for it ain't going to make it right. So let's just take a look at the scenario that was laid out. What actually happened to these women as you know it? Can you fill us in on that, David?
Yes. Well, one lady was actually raped, and another lady, she only had her house broken into, and she supposedly stopped the guy from raping her. So, but they was at the same apartment complex, which my father happened to live and work at. So, So that's what happened.
Here's the thing. Prior to those convictions, did your father have any other run-ins with the police? Did he have any convictions on any other charges that may have even been similar to these type of charges?
Yes. He had a breaking and entering back in 89, and he did a year in prison for that.
Okay. The burglary or the breaking in, I understand. Was there any other associations with sexual assaults or anything else?
Oh,
like
no.
That? Okay.
No, nothing like that, no.
So, two women. One was burgled and raped, and the other one was just burgled, and apparently stopped. But according to this, one of the victims gave a description of a white male.
Yes, sir.
Was that ever submitted to court? Was that raised?
Oh, yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was raised, and they chose to ignore it.
Because out of some of the points,
and they reminded her. I have transcripts here. They reminding her that's what she said first, and they still went on and convicted them.
The funny thing is when you take this back 24 years ago, justice was a lot more dated than it is now, but it was still meant to be justice. They still had ways of getting to the truth. How much effort was put into? For example, was your father the first person arrested? Was he their main suspect? How did your father become included? So I suppose is what I'm looking for as a suspect for this crime. How did he get raised on this? How did he get involved?
Oh well, because he worked at the apartment complex and he lived there, but he wasn't the only one picked up for this. A couple guys were as they did a lineup sheet. And the lady, she couldn't even identify him in there. So a couple guys were picked up for this, but my father was linked to it because he lived at the apartment and he worked at the apartment too. So that's how he got tangled up in this.
So is there any other evidence, forensic, that ties your father to the crime? I mean, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Did they get any semen? Did they get any fingerprints? Did they get any saliva? Did they get any?
Yep.
Did they get forensics?
They got fingerprints.
Okay.
They got fingerprints, and they came back negative to him.
Wow.
On the mask, multiple fingerprints.
On the mask.
On the mask, multiple.
And none of them belong to your father.
Nope, negative.
So they had forensic evidence. They had fingerprints. Didn't match your father, but yet
Nope.
your father gets convicted.
Because. Oh no, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I want you to paint this story for us. I want the audience to hear how a man going about his daily life can end up finding himself sat in prison for 24 years, the best part of his entire life, for a crime.
Yeah. Well, the thing that got him convicted was the fact that both ladies pointed out the mask and they removed hairs from the mask and put it on his coat.
Wow.
And framed him. That's how, and that's all they used. They only called in the forensic scientists on that part. They didn't call in the woman who did the lab testing, which was Melinda G. Jackson, and they didn't call in the guy who did the fingerprint testing, which was Timothy Mill. They only called in the forensic lady, Erin Coho, who did who said that the hairs from the mask matched his jacket. They didn't call in the DNA part, so that looks suspicious.
Oh, that's more than suspicious. I mean, Cecil Dawson and Sergeant Christine Bursey, who were in charge of the case, were later both sent to prison for selling drugs, and the police department was shut down due to corruption. That speaks volumes, right?
That speak volumes,
So is there any evidence that can be brought forward now where that charge could be challenged?
Oh no, because we got a letter from the Innocence Project who is helping us that they, because we FOIA'd all the evidence on our behalf, and then they followed behind us and did the same. And when they went to check the Oakland County Sheriff's Office, they didn't have any records related to the February 2nd, 1993 crimes against Miss Bluestein. So, that shows that everything that we have, that's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing they can come forward with because the lockers are empty. So they never had nothing on him in the beginning.
I'm kind of... I was expecting to be dumbstruck, but I'm more than dumbstruck because the more I read into this is the less I see how your father even ended up being arrested, let alone facing trial. So
yeah, because when they couldn't identify him, they had to let him go, but they decided to keep him for whatever reason. He wasn't identified by either lady, and the law, you had to let him go, but they decided to keep him. So,
David,
Yes.
your area of expertise is prosecutorial misconduct. How is this sounding to you, David?
It sounds like someone is a victim of a crime, and the police needed to find a perpetrator. And David's father was an easy target. He's African American. He's poor in comparison to what you need to finance a legal team to fight against the police. He had a prior criminal record that was not violent or sexual in any way whatsoever, but that didn't matter to them. And they knew that the public defender he had would go along with whatever happened, and that an appeal was highly unlikely, and that the district attorney would be reelected for solving the problem. The police would feel good about putting another black away, and the Republicans would be happy that there's another Democrat taken off the street and never allowed to vote again. Not to mention that the for-profit jails would have a head in the bed paying them the profits they need to survive. Now, what else do you need to know?
You have a son who is separated from his father, a father who doesn't get to see his son grow up, spending 24 years of his life in prison for a crime that he knows and everybody else knows he didn't commit. The DNA evidence shows that the perpetrator was white, and they've got a black man sitting in a cell. The police who are in charge of the investigation have proven to be corrupt and have been sent to prison themselves. The unit, the law office in particular, has been shut down because it was found to be corrupt. Surely there is something in that says we need to be looking at. I mean, we see it on TV all the time. Now we need to be looking into anything else that these guys were involved with to find out if their corrupt hands has done anything wrong in there. Now, with this evidence, the original evidence, which proves that their father couldn't have been the perpetrator because he's not white, and it's not his fingerprints, surely there must be something, a step forward that can be taken in common sense.
Carvin, let me say this. First of all, the only way the Central Five in New York were ever cleared of the rape and attempted murder of the jogger was when, after they had served their prison time, a man was in prison and he admitted to doing it. They connected that man to the DNA evidence and found out that, in fact, he was there, he did have the opportunity, and he was guilty by his own admission, and the police evidence that they had hidden. Even after the men had been exonerated, and the city of New York paid $43 million in damages for taking 15 years of their lives away, even then, Donald Trump said last month that those 5 men were still guilty. They were still guilty because they admitted they were guilty under torture. Well, This is America. Now think about that. You're saying David's father, who was probably innocent and serving time in prison like he has, should have a way to find justice. But when we live in a country where a life is not valued, when that life belongs to an African American or a Hispanic or to a gay person who happens to be nailed up on a fence post in Wyoming, and the perpetrators only get 3 years because they said in court he tried to seduce them. This is sickening. Since when do you get to murder a person by nailing him onto a fence post with 3-degree temperature outside because he tried to seduce you, even if it were true? Here you are, 3 big cowboys, and you're scared of a boy who weighs 120 pounds? Are you kidding me? You're supposed to go wrestle horses and cows, and you're afraid of this little boy? But in America, you don't count if you're black or Hispanic or gay or a woman. Don't you get that, Kervin? There is no justice for those people, even when God himself comes down and declares it. The only way there will ever be justice is when you reconcile that fact. And then you say, we're just going to do what we can to live. And you find the evidence, you reverse the case, and you move on. That is it in America. A life does not matter unless it happens to be a very wealthy white person who is in some way offended. And then you are justified, as in the case of Emmett Till, to go out and kill a 14-year-old black boy because he smiled at a white woman and insulted her husband by doing so. This is America, the land of the primitive.
See, for me, go on, David.
Oh no! Another thing I wanted to point out was they did try to give my father a plea deal, and
What was it?
he 20 years, and he rejected it.
Oh, that made him mad.
Yep, and he rejected it. He told him, I'm not admitting to nothing I didn't do. And also the problem that arose in court was that they hid this DNA evidence. They only the lab reports are 10 pages long. They only the head detective Robert Aleo only turned in 3 of them.
David, what do you mean they hid? What do you mean they hid the evidence?
Oh, they only out of a 10-page lab report, they only turned in 3.
What do you mean
3
turned in? You mean brought into the court?
Yeah.
And when did the defense attorney know about this?
It was stipulated between the defense and the prosecutor, so I believe so, but the jury didn't know about it.
So wait a minute. So the prosecutor and the defense stipulated in court with the judge's approval that only 3 of the 10 pages would be admitted into evidence.
Yes.
Why did the defense attorney of your father stipulate to that?
I don't know. I don't know. Don't know.
What did the
and
other,
I've asked him, and I wrote it.
Okay, what did
I've
the
read
other
it.
say? What did the other 7 pages say?
Okay. Well, the other 7 pages show that there was no sperm that wasn't presented. That the fingerprints didn't match. That and it shows the other that hair was found in the bed, hair was found in the mask.
Okay, so DNA evidence. But tell me this: who was your father's defense attorney court appointed?
The first one was. This one who represented him wasn't. He got rid of the first one who tried to make him take a plea, and the second one who ended up representing him wasn't. That was a paid lawyer.
Who paid him?
Believe my grandmother, my father's mother.
Was that the one that was reprimanded and suspended numerous times?
Yep, Ben Gonick.
Okay, so have you brought this to the attention of an appellate lawyer? So in this case, what happens is, since your father's attorney did not preserve an argument on appeal, in other words, admitting it or not admitting it would be an argument on appeal. Since he agreed to it by stipulation, then what the course would be to bring action in the court for a bad attorney representation, malfeasance.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Have you talked to anyone about that?
I've talked to a couple of people, but they, moving, everybody just stuck standing still, like my father said, people just think there's more when there's not, It's hard for people to get past the fact that everything has been completed and finished. He ready, he can come home now, but people just, they can't wrap their mind around that. They think it's always more, or, so I have, but I haven't gotten any much
where's
success with it.
Where's your father now?
Oh, he's in prison in Michigan.
Yeah, so when is he going to come home?
Oh, well, his earliest release date is 2033. So,
are you kidding me? 2033.
Yeah. That's his earliest release date.
How many years was he? He was sentenced to what? 50 years?
40 to 60.
Did anyone die?
No.
No one died.
No.
He was sentenced to 40 to 60 years for 2 counts of break-in and entry and 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct.
Oh my God. That's just unbelievable.
Isn't it just? It's very excessive, even for the charge, with no disrespect to the victim.
There are people who commit murder and they serve 5 years. I mean,
and that's what he say. He see it all the time. Guys who done murdered people and they go home before him. So
some prosecutor really had it in for him.
Yeah. The judge, everybody did. Everybody had a finger in it. The judge, prosecutors.
Tell me something. Are you aware of anything that was going on in your locality, in your state, in your borough at the time, that would have justified such a harsh sentence on an African American individual for crimes supposedly committed against white people? At that time, was there a really strong stance against, because to me, 40 to 60 years for 2 counts of burglary and 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct. They're not even talking about aggravated rape or aggressive or. I'm just not getting it. Somebody's going to have to explain this to me in layman's terms.
Well, they was able to hit him with a habitual offender. That's what happened. They was able to double his sentence.
Double his sentence on what grounds?
Oh, that he had a prior
habitual.
Conviction.
Habitual.
Prior conviction.
Okay. Wow.
Okay, so let me ask you this. So if he had taken the plea, he would have got 20 years. 1 for 2, he'd be out in 10 years. And now he's going to do 40.
Hey, well, yeah. He's going to do 40 unless we get him home and, innocent, exonerated.
Have you talked to any organizations or nonprofits who address these kind of unjust issues?
Yes, we do have the Innocence Project, who had his case in 2004 and failed to bring him home, and now they reopened it in 2012 and assigned him an attorney in January 2016. But they're overstaffed, so they can't move as fast as we want them to move, or they want to move. So.
But they are looking at it.
Yeah, they're looking at it.
Have you talked to any newspaper people? Do you have anyone to help you to publicize this?
I've tried numerous times, and I've got someone.
Who?
Right now, I got one person. His name is Bill Proctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got him, but I've reached out to numerous people numerous times, and I got nothing.
What paper is he with?
Oh well, he worked for Channel 7. He was a private investigator here in the state of Michigan. He recently came out of retirement to help innocent people again. So
you've got to find a way to go on the campaign, David. Right? You've got to take this out to the streets. You've got to take it out to the media. You've got to take it out to the TV channels. You've got to take it out to the news people. You've got to persistently pressurize them to listen to you until they start publicizing this story that other people can turn around and say, what the heck's going on here? Something must be done.
Yeah.
That's what you got to be doing.
I am, you know, but, you know.
The thing is in America, and I don't know about other countries, but if you are labeled a sexual offender, then people are reluctant to help you, even if they see that you're probably innocent, because they think that you have some type of compassion or empathy for a sexual offender because you might be that way yourself.
Yeah, I get that. There's a stigma that goes with it, isn't it?
A huge stigma, and the government makes sure it stays with you for the rest of your life, because if you're a burglar or a murderer, for example, if you murder your wife and all your children in America, and you go to jail for 20 years, when you get out, that's it. You go on in life. But if you so much as have sex with a woman, and then she says she didn't agree to it, and there was no harm done, you say it was consensual, but you're convicted for whatever reason, for the rest of your life, you are a sexual offender, and you must register. You cannot live in certain places. You can't rent apartments. You can't buy a home. You can't live near a school or a church. I mean, it's horrendous, because it is the American scarlet S, sex, like the scarlet letter A for adultery, the scarlet letter F for federal. In this felon, in this country, there are tattoos that the government, with societal approval, puts upon people's head, and it takes away from them any chance whatsoever of reform, redemption, recovery. It takes away any hope for a future. It makes sure they can never vote again, so they can't change the very laws that have stigmatized them with a lack of freedom and any sense of dignity as a human being, whether or not it's true or false what they did. A murderer is much more welcome back into society than is someone who played with a girl's boobs or fiddled around with the boy in the Boy Scouts. Far worse. I'm not saying those things aren't serious, but they're not murder. I mean, if you gave me a choice, you can play with my son's little Pecky illegally, or you can murder my daughter. I'd much rather take the first. I don't want you killing my family. So that's the way it is in America. And David Stinson is facing that problem where there are lawyers, they're humans too, and they don't want to affect their clientele, their future business. People will come and say, I want to hire you. And then they read in the paper, oh, you're defending a sexual molester who's doing 40 years. I don't want you to work for me. The jury may not like you. The judge may not like you. And so that's the problem. It's hard to get justice. Am I right or wrong, David? David? Is David
yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm here, yeah. I mean, you know, my father, he says that all the time. You know, he just can't believe that people are so, and he didn't even do this, but you know, he says, you know, all the time, you know, like they got a site, you know, here, and it says that you know, it got people who've committed, you know, rapes, you know, criminal sexual conduct, and he already on there, even though he's not home, you know, he's already on there, and he said, you know, he just can't believe, you know, he's labeled as a rapist, you know, it's he won't be able to, as you said, live by his school. You know, do none of those things. So,
Kervin, how is it in Great Britain when people commit these kind of offenses?
There is a sex register which they have to sign on to, report to a police station. They're not allowed to live within a proximity of schools. They can't be seen in certain places. But it's not as policed as well as it should be. But for me, I think the justice system that we have in this country is a lot fairer. The jury is pooled a lot fairer. I've often said this, that although we're not perfect yet, the standards of human rights here in the United Kingdom is of a much higher standard when you imagine all the diversity of cultures and ethnicities that we have here in this country. We did have a time where if you was a person of color, then the law just didn't work in your favor. But after a procession of campaigns and very well fought battles, we no longer have that issue over here. But if you are convicted of a criminal offence, rape or child molestation or anything like that, you've got to sign on the sex register, and you cannot live in a proximity of a school. And yeah, that's understandable, and you'd expect them to put that measure in place for the protection of the community. But getting your appeal heard back at court is far easier in this country than what I'm hearing here in America, especially when the evidence is so clear-cut that this man is innocent. This is what baffles me. I am absolutely speechless and gobsmacked, dumbfounded, gobbledygooked, you name it. Because for me, right, when the evidence is so overwhelmingly biased and corrupt, someone in a seat of office is supposed to say, we need to do something about that for the integrity of justice.
Yep. And this county that he got convicted in, they only have a 55% conviction rate on these cases. So 45% of the time they're wrong, and it's documented that they're wrong a lot of times in these type of cases. And they even had to give a man $2 million just for wrongly accusing him of a sex crime.
And here lies the problem. That's one of the reasons why they don't want to look at releasing your father, because 40 to 60 years, you know how much they're going to have to pay that man?
Yeah, that's what he said.
I'm not sure if the state's got enough money in its account to pay him when they release him. So they got to ignore. So you got to keep on fighting. You got to fight with everything that you've got. You got to use every tool and every weapon and every resource available to you. You got to take this worldwide if you have to, and take help from anybody that's prepared to give it, because this is so wrongfully wrong that I can't understand how the law authorities don't wake up and go, man, I smell bad because this thing is on me.
He say those things all the time.
David, there's a show on television. It's called Forensic Files. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
Okay, they have a lot of people who are on that show, and they don't do like the Innocence Project. They don't go out and solve problems. But they have people on the show who have solved problems. So, for example, I saw it one night, had this guy, and you wouldn't believe this, Carbon. It's amazing. This guy worked for Firestone Tire Company for 40 years. And there's nothing in the world about an automobile tire that he didn't know. Nothing. And a man was accused of kidnapping a young girl and killing her. And he was put in prison, convicted. But this man took the tire tracks at the site, and with those tire tracks, absolutely proved beyond a doubt that the tread matched a certain truck in that community. And he did that because he recognized that tread had one little line after every seventh indent in it. And there was only one tire made like that. And he knew that from his institutional memory. And he looked it up. He found the serial number. He attached it to that truck, that purchaser. They investigated that man, and they found him guilty. And the other man was released just from one expert in a tire. Now, we're talking about DNA, and they have all kinds of DNA experts. And I'm wondering if David S. didn't, if you would write to them and find out a good criminal expert who they have used in this type of forensics, DNA forensics. If you couldn't find someone who might volunteer his time to research this, because if he does, it only enhances his own credibility and gets him more work. I mean, there's something in it for him too.
Absolutely.
Have you thought of that? Have you thought of that, David?
No, I haven't thought of that one. I haven't thought of writing that show, but I'm open to anything.
Well,
So
if I was
I'll take a
you,
look into it.
I would spend a week or 2 weeks at a photocopier, photocopying everything that I've got as many times as I possibly can with as much paper as I can use. And then I'll find every single organization and every single TV program and every single newspaper and reporter, private, local, activists, you name it. And I'd be sending that out. I'll be sending that out until somebody writes back to me and says, how on earth did your father get in jail? I want to help. Because I can guarantee you, when you look at what I take even just on the face value of what I saw, and I've been on a couple of other websites to look at what's been done on a wrongfully convicted website I've been on as well, and seen some of the stuff that's been written about your father or about your father's case, and I am taken aback as to how any court in any place in this world could have found your father guilty. I'm dumbstruck.
Yeah, and they like I said, they hid the main thing. So all they went off of was the two ladies pointing out the same mask and the fact that they framed the hairs from the mask on his jacket. That's all they went off of. They never called in the people to show that the hairs in the mask and that was found on the bed didn't match a black man, So, and the fingerprints didn't match, the mask. And they didn't call in those people.
And there you have it. So if you started to contact the right organizations, the people who know these areas best, somebody will respond because, as David has just said, it only raises their profile in that industry. They get accreditations for these kind of things. So you've just got to start widening your circle. And I'm not judging in any way. I'm not sure what you've done or who you've tried to approach in recent years or whatever. Again, you lost your father at a very young age, and you've had to live most of your life without him. And I'm not sure how long you've campaigned for yourself on what kind of encouragement and support that you've got in that. But it may be that you affiliate yourself with another organization that are better equipped in going forward with this and taking advice outside of the circle that you're currently using. Because for me, there has to be a way forward where you can present this evidence to a group of people that turn around and say, I can use this to challenge the findings of the court back then.
No, you're right. You're right. You're 100% right.
David, what else can you do?
I think that's a good one. I also think that what may I ask what faith your father belongs to? Did he go to church? Do you go to church? Your mother?
No. But he definitely believes in God, and he prays, he reads the Bible, but he doesn't. He's not a big religious type guy, but he does pray. He believes in God.
He believes in God.
So yeah. And Christianity, I believe in.
Well, here's the thing: from the moment that he knows who God's in his life, then he's got to have faith. At least he's got a hope.
He have a lot of faith. He hasn't went crazy. He's really gotten himself together. And he's determined to not let them break him. He say he gonna make sure he get up out of there and intact.
Okay. So.
I think that if you could focus on some clergy, people who might help you when it comes to a court case, does your father have anyone visit him who's religious at all?
No.
Because when it comes to a court case, it's very good to have somebody who's somewhat religious. You know what I'm saying? To guide you, to help you, to convince the judge and the jury that you deserve a fair shake. That's important. That's very important.
Okay. Well, no. He doesn't have many visitors, as his family kind of gave up on him. So he, and his mother is on life support right now, and his father passed away when he was younger. So the only people that's there for him as of now are me, his fiance, his daughter, and his daughter's mother. And, that's about it.
I see. Well, your father shouldn't be isolated. David, do you follow me on Facebook or Twitter? It seems like you follow me on one of them.
Facebook.
Yeah, you're on my Facebook. I'm going to work with you on this and try to find some. I'm going to try to see if there's some forensic people who might help you with this. In the meantime, you need to cultivate some people in your community who are interested in justice. And there are organizations you can go to, and there is the legal office for the indigent you can go to, and you can write to organizations on the internet who work on things like this. There are a lot. You're in Detroit, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, you're not far from the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor, which is one of the top 5 law schools in the United States. I am certain the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor has a program, and this is primarily directed at young people who are studying law in the law school, and they're assigned cases to look at and to analyze and to see if there's any basis for appeal. And I would contact the University of Michigan Law School, and I would go in person, and I would speak to the dean or to the department head for those students who are assigned to this kind of task and ask them if they would take up the case of your father. That's what they do. That's how they learn. You follow me?
Oh, yeah.
Have you done that? I think there's also the John Marshall School of Law is out there, I think, in Detroit.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll definitely look into those. But, he kind of, here, it's the Innocence Project, Thomas M. Cooley Law School, and, they're the big name for the ones who get people exonerated, Well, so he has them.
Let me say this to you, David, with no disrespect to anybody. Your father needs all the help he can get. Your father has been in jail for 24 years and is looking to be in there for another 20 plus, right? Time is not on his side, right? At the end of the day, right, your father could spend any time between 40 and 60 years in jail for a crime he did not commit. And I know you probably feel like these guys down at the Innocence Project is really supportive right now, but they failed once before, and there's no guarantee that they're going to succeed this time, based on whatever resources that they might use. And I'm telling you something, Dr. David Remay is a former lecturer at university, and his area of expertise is prosecutorial misconduct. And if that man was to point me in the direction of help that I might be able to use, I would jump at it without a second's hesitation. So hear me clearly when I say this, right? Whatever advice he's giving you right now, never mind who the Innocence Project is. You see, what David is trying to tell you about the law school at university, these guys are given a remit, right? These people are acknowledged, recognized, and their vision accepted. So you give them that case, and they all of a sudden they come back and they say, you know what? There is this hole, there is this hole, there is this hole, there is this gap, and there's that wrong, and there's that wrong. This should have never been allowed. Somebody will hear. Somebody will listen, because these are the next generation of lawyers and prosecutors that are going to be coming out there into the world, right? So,
I definitely is taking his advice. I'm just saying, here in Michigan, the University of Michigan, they have a clinic like that, but they only deal with murders and ballistics. The one my father has working for him is the one who deals with DNA. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing here. Michigan, they have the Michigan Innocence Clinic. They only do murders. They don't deal with DNA. That's the only hold up there with them.
But what David is trying to tell you is down at the university, they will have a team of people that will look at forensics, full stop.
Okay.
And if you just seek that out, have a look, hand it to
Okay.
them. Just get them to look at the forensics, because that's what you're asking them to look at, to compare the forensics. And they'll look through the files, all the paperwork that you've got, all the evidence that you've got, and they'll just go, you know what, that don't make sense. It don't add up.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll definitely look into anything. You know, I was just trying to, explain that part right there.
Good,
That's
good,
all.
good. What else can you do, David?
I think that's a good beginning. I think you need to start putting together an outline. You sound like you're quite capable of that, of your father's case history, so that when you go and meet, and I can help you with this if you like, for free, when you go to meet with these people and ask for help, you have basically what we call an executive summary. This is what happened, and this is how it happened. This is what they say happened. This is what you say happened. This is your supporting evidence, and it's a 2-page executive summary. And then you have attached to that reference points to substantiate what you say, and that will attract people's interest. Also, you might share that with a newspaper, and I wouldn't rely on television so much. Newspapers or a magazine, and when reporters, I'll tell you a big secret about reporters. Most of them are very, very lazy. So what you have to do is give them the story. I mean, think about this. How many newspaper reporters have you ever met that are skinny? Never. They're all kind of heavy because they sit on their asses all day taking phone calls and typing. They don't really exercise. They don't do things. So they're lazy in a way. So you have to feed it to them. And when you feed them a good story, they'll like it. I know in my day when I was a public figure, I basically wrote the story and gave it to them, and they went with it. And that's the way it works. So we have to write some stories to make people interested, and that will attract a lawyer who might say, you know what, I need some publicity. I think I'll take this on.
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree.
But you have to have the evidence. You can't go to somebody and say, like you're on Curvin's show right now.
Mm-hmm.
You should have an outline, and it should be really brief and powerful. You know, boom, my father was indicted. He was found guilty. This was the evidence. It was not there was no legal evidence there. It should not have happened. This is why it happened. Boom, boom, boom. And it gets people excited, but more importantly, it gets them mad because they think, wow, if that can happen to him, it can happen to me. Yeah. You follow me?
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh no, I've started I got a petition online that, does that, is short and straight to the point, and I've sent it around. And, the thing is, I just think, as I said, I will continue to do that and, take you guys' advice. But, I reached out to a lot of people, and a lot of them just, as I said, they get stuck because I think they really don't believe that we have what we have, that it's as clear cut as I make it seem.
David, let me ask you something. I don't mean to be in any way critical. I just want to ask you a simple question. Okay. If it was easy to get people justice, like your father, do you think anybody would be in jail?
No.
I mean, okay, it's not easy. You've got to fight. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen the movie Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman?
No, I haven't.
Okay, you go rent that movie on Netflix or wherever. It's called Tootsie, Tootsie. It's a story about a young guy who wants to be an actor, okay? And all he faces is rejection. He has to actually dress up as a vegetable. I think he runs around the street as a piece of lettuce or something, or a hot banana. I don't know what he is, but it's all rejection. And 99% of the people who want to be a movie star don't make it. You know why? Because they can't face rejection. After the 10th time, they're told, you can't do it, you're not acceptable, you're not right for the part. They give up, become a waiter, go home, get married, and die on the assembly line. But those people who don't quit, they finally get that break. And that's the case with your father. You have to keep going and going and going. And every time you get rejected, you know what you say? one more down, closer to the game line. You have to look at that rejection. You know how you have a 100-yard football field, right? And every 5 yards you have a line. Every rejection is one of those 5-yard lines, so that in the end you come to the goal post. But nobody gets to the goal post without going through all those 5-yard lines. And that's what you have to look at it as. So a rejection means you're just closer to the guy who's going to be the solution. You follow me?
Oh yeah, no, I was saying that.
I'm not a bad writer myself. In fact, I'm a far better writer than I am a speaker. My speaking ability and ability to come up with language and words is far inferior to my writing ability. In fact, it's so debilitating, I'm ashamed to even be on the radio.
well, no, my thing was I was saying that to let you guys know that I'm contacting numerous people and I'm not going to quit. You know, I'm just getting rejected a lot. You know, that's the whole thing, you know. So I'm never going to stop fighting for my father's freedom, you know, because for one, he's my father, and for two, you know, the evidence it speaks for itself.
Absolutely, but don't let the fight be the fight. The fight needs to be a victory, and you need to be setting it out in such a way that you're seeing yourself going somewhere and getting a result from it. There are many people that spend their entire lives fighting a campaign because that's what they live for. They'll just live to fight the campaign. Doesn't matter what the result's going to be. This has to be a result because your father's innocent. He needs to come home. He's already missed out on the best years of his children's life. He needs to be able to enjoy the rest of his. And whatever it's going to cost the state, whatever they're going to have to pay him, they're going to have to just pay him. They're going to have to suck on it, and they're going to have to get on with it. But the bottom line is, your father needs to come home, and that's by any means necessary. And you know, the funny thing is, Black Lives Matter seems to focus a lot on unlawful killing, but we've got many black men who are serving long sentences in jail for crimes that they didn't commit. And I think that's as much as a Black Lives Matter issue as anything else. So I would contact anybody and every organization that says that these issues are supposed to matter, and see if I can get them to jump on board and help promote not so much popularize, but familiarize people with the story of your father, so that it can start being a talking point where we say, you heard about, and believe you me, sometimes that's where it starts. It starts in a conversation, you know. And
my father, you know, and that's another thing that he said. He says, you know, people, you know, get irate and, you know, go crazy when you know, a black man is killed innocently. But he said, you know, it's two sides of that coin. You know, it's a lot of black men in prison for crime that they did not commit, and they just don't get the same attention as the guy, you know, the black man who was killed. You know, so you know, he says that all the time.
Yes, and when you put a black man in prison, or any man in prison, you're basically taking his life. You're just doing it in another way.
Yeah, that's what he said all the time.
We often talk about the Cardiff 3 case because again, we did this on our show about 2 years ago, myself and David and Satish, and I was the chairman of the Cardiff 3 campaign. And again, as I spoke to you earlier on, David, and telling you that it took us 4 years to get it to the Court of Appeal and get them released. But just the semantics of that particular case, a young prostitute was stabbed over 50 odd times, her breast almost cut off and stuff like that. And the chief of police, head of CID, John Stalker, went on national TV, he went on Crime Watch TV, right, after that murder, and talked about a white man with blood on his hands seen on the steps of that girl's flat, right, within moments of her death. And they had 10 months they were looking for this white man. And when they couldn't find him after 10 months, the issue was a local organization was sent in to rejuvenate that area. And they were given £50 million to go and to rebuild this community. And the police said to them, we need to get this murder to go away, because if you don't get this murder to go away, we won't get no investors. Right? So after 10 months, they couldn't find the white guy they were looking for. They went into the local community, of which they were given £50 million to rejuvenate, and they arrested 3,000 black men. They took all of these black men into prison, and then they whittled it down to 5. Charged the 5 with murder. 2 of them got acquitted. 3 of them were found guilty. Let me just give you the joke. Tony Paris, who was one of those that was found guilty, wasn't one of the original 5 that was arrested. There was a guy by the name of Tony Parks, and I want you to listen to this very carefully. The guy's name was Tony Parks. He was originally arrested for this crime, and as one of the 5, and he was later found murdered on the motorway before this ever got to trial. So what they did was, on the key eyewitnesses' statement, they got them back into the police station to make another statement, only this time the name Tony Parks was removed and the name Tony Paris was put in.
Aye.
Right? Because the name just fitted. So when you see the book Fitted In, which was written by Satish Sekhar, the title of the book is called Fitted In, and it's part of the Fitted In project. That's where the Fitted In comes from, because Tony Paris was just fitted in to that slot when Tony Parks died.
Wow.
And he was one of them that was convicted and sentenced to life for a murder that everybody knew he didn't commit. We couldn't get anybody in our community to support us, including the black politicians, and we had a black member of parliament who lived in our community, in fact, who taught him at school. We couldn't get anybody to support us. But we campaigned relentlessly. In fact, we brought the whole of Wales to a standstill. We went out onto the streets and we blocked the roads. We blocked the roads. We stopped traffic. We did anything that we could. 4 years, we got these guys free. But the point I'm trying to make is this. I'm fully aware of just how innocent people can end up in jail doing long terms for crimes that they didn't commit. But we who are around the outside, we've got to have hope. There has to be a methodology. We have to follow a method. We've got to follow a process. And that process has got to have a light at the end of the tunnel. We can't just campaign for campaigning's sake. And, there are many options that are open to you right now. And you need to start throwing that net out. Right? Throwing that net out further.
Okay.
It's great to have the Innocent Project on board, but they're not the only people you need. You need anybody and everybody that works in that environment to be hearing your father's case.
Yeah, you are correct there. He need anything he can get.
Let me ask you this. Now, you said the attorney who represented your father had some problems. What kind of problems? They have is he still a lawyer? Has he been disbarred?
No, he's still a lawyer, but he's been reprimanded, suspended from his practice numerous times.
Okay,
one of them was for he gave one of his clients, contraband, So
okay, so let me
that
ask
was one
you,
of them.
Have you asked the state bar of Michigan for his record of disciplinary action?
No, some of them are online.
No, I don't care about what's online. You can't believe anything online. I'm asking you, have you asked the state of Michigan? Every state has a bar association. The state of Michigan has a Michigan Bar Association. It's probably in Lansing. You need to ask them for a copy of his disciplinary record, and you need to write to the Bar Ethics Committee for a copy of all decisions they've made in reference to his record. If you can get the lawyer's record, and if it looks bad enough, then you could make a reasonable argument to a judge that your father did not have adequate representation. And if he failed to have adequate representation, that is in large part due to the fact that the state of Michigan licensed a lawyer who was corrupt or who was not qualified. And therefore, they're on the line too. And this might get the judge to reevaluate your case. And in the best scenario, the new prosecutor, I'm sure it's not the same prosecutor, the new district attorney might come to terms and say, well, Your Honor, we're not going to give him any money for this false conviction, but we are willing to say time served and he can come out if they don't make a case out of this. And so you could use it as leverage to get your father's freedom. Now, Kervin has brought up money due to damages. Believe me, that can come much later. The main thing is to get your father free.
Absolutely.
Once he is free, then you can worry about everything else. But you might have a case of habeas corpus. Why are you, which means in the Constitution, why are you holding my father when you convicted him without having adequate legal representation, which is a constitutional guarantee denied him by the state of Michigan? You follow me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So I would focus really on this lawyer thing because I know in Texas, 2 cases were reopened and settled in the favor of the defense. One was a man was convicted of murder and his defense attorney was shown to be drunk and sleeping during the case. The second was a lawyer who was known to be taking bribes, and he was the defense attorney for a guy who was convicted of setting a fire and killing his family, and he was found innocent after they brought up the fact that his defense attorney was corrupt. So I would really focus on the defense attorney who did not represent your father in a way that would preserve him from 40 years of loss of freedom.
Okay. Yeah, and I did write him and call him, and he never responded to neither one. So that will again, be my next step.
That's it. As David says, it's not even about calling him. It's about calling the ethics bar and getting his record, because that's what you're challenging.
No. I was just saying that I made a step to it, but, I will do that.
But the thing is you call only to find out where to write, and then you write. Remember, whenever you phone call, you give them the ability to deny you.
Right.
Because they can say, well, we don't know anything about it. But when you write, it's a record. That's why whenever you write, it's a record. It's for example, when I call up about anything, a bill I got or a charge or something I don't agree with, the first thing I always do is say, what is your name and what's your ID number? And that puts them on notice that they will be accountable. You follow me? So I never yell, oh, you overcharged me, blah, you overcharged me, blah, 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 blah. No. I call up and say, hello, I'm very, very sorry to disturb you, and I know you're busy, but I have an inquiry to make. But before I do, may I have your name and your company badge number? And they're like, well, why do you want it? I said, I just want to remember who I'm talking to. Well, boy, you're going to get excellent service now because they know you're going to hold them accountable. And that's how you have to be with that. With these people who you deal with, you have to ask them their name, their ID number, and then ask them very politely. If they get belligerent with you, just simply say, I'm sorry, maybe I'm speaking to the wrong person. Could I speak to someone else or maybe your manager? And they get real nice real soon, you see, because the people are like that. They're like Russian bureaucrats. They just want to get off and drink their vodka. So, or in this case, in America, they want to go home and watch their porn videos. I don't know. So the thing to do is to find out who they are, get their address, and then, David, if you'll write me on my Facebook, I don't have a lot of time, but I'm more than willing to help you with this, because anytime we can get justice, that's something I really want to do.
Okay. Yeah, I definitely will write you. Definitely.
David, let's just move this story on a little bit further. How has your mother been through all of this?
Well, they weren't together at the time of his incarceration. So, she really, she hoping for the best for him, but, they don't communicate or anything like that. So.
Did your mother divorce him?
Oh no! Well, they weren't married. They just broke up.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, they just broke up. Oh no, it's okay. They were young. They were young.
That's a black thing, David. Okay. we kind of do that thing a lot, you know.
It's only black because you have the fruit of the womb, and in our case, we're forced to wear condoms. It's not like we don't do it.
We love the fruit of the womb. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Anyhow, on a serious note, you have I take it you have a half sister, his other daughter, right?
Yes.
Okay. And how is she affected by all of this?
Well, she's affected by it. Obviously, you know, he wasn't around, but they had a close relationship, you know, during his whole time, because her mother made sure of that. So she was able to handle it a lot easier than me, you know, because I wasn't able to, due to the reasons, you know, my mother kind of kept me away from it until I was able to, you know, contact him on my own, you know. So
are you angry? Know. Are you angry that the states have kept you away from your father for all these years?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Are you angry? Definitely. Are you angry with the state?
Not angry with this. Well, I'm more so angry with, you know, the people who were involved. I really can't blame the entire state, but more so, you know, the prosecutor, the judge, the police department. You know, I'm angry with those people. Yeah. And I'm still angry that he's still in there, you know, with all this evidence he has.
What about your father? How does he handle all of this? He's been in there for nearly 24 years now. How is he handling all of this?
Oh, well, you know, as I said, you know, at first it was hard on him. You know, he really, you know, was angry and things like that. But, you know, like he said, you know, he had to get himself together and understand that, you know, he didn't know when he was going home, but he knew he was going to go home one day. So he started making, you know, changes in his life. You know, he gave up smoking, gave up, you know, red meats, pork. You know, he just started really working on himself mentally, emotionally, and physically. So, you know, he have his days where he's frustrated, but for the most part, he's in a good place right now, you know. So he's taking it well now.
Does he have anything to do? How is his life in prison? Is he in a special section, or is he with other people? Is he in the main population?
Yeah, he in general pop. You know, he you know, he been down a long time, so, you know, he got respect. You know, a lot of guys know he's innocent, so he don't have those kind of problems that some people will have. He don't have those problems. No, he's okay. You know.
I suppose that when other convictees know you're innocent, that's when you really know you're innocent, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when you've got other people in prison who are rooting for you, then you know you're standing on a bit of good ground.
Now, there's one other avenue we haven't really talked about yet, and I brought it up. I brought it up a little bit with the Central Park Five. Has there been any effort on your part or your family's part, a private investigator, to find out who did the crime? In other words, you've got the DNA from the crime. Has there been any recent, every state now has a data bank of all perpetrators and convicted felons and arrestees of DNA. Has there been a recent run of that particular DNA gathered at the scene of the crime to see if it matches anyone in the data bank?
No. We were informed.
That should be done immediately because
that's a priority.
Because that's like having fingerprints and not checking them. I mean, that's evidence, and you need to run that DNA to see if it matches anyone, because the person who committed that crime that sexual crime is not somebody who's going to do that on a blue sunny day and never do it again. That is a kind of perpetrator who advances his method of offending people.
And here's the thing. Here's the other thing. Even if he hasn't been caught yet, if he's continued to commit that crime while your father's in jail, well, then that just tells a whole nother story again, doesn't it?
Go ahead.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? If that DNA evidence turns up on other crime scenes while your father's been incarcerated, then that just shows, well, when did my father get the chance to do that as well then, huh? Since he's been locked up for 24 years. So
yes, and Carvin, basically in America, nowadays in most jurisdictions, if you could connect a perpetrator with a DNA match at a crime scene, a person who is falsely convicted is pretty much released instantaneously if he's not shown to be connected to the perpetrator himself. In other words, a conspirator or something of that, a neighbor, something like that, who could have a connection. So, David S., you really need to check that DNA data bank, because this is 24 years that bank may have now the opportunity to have a match for the crime scene.
Yeah,
it's just I saw recently where a man was convicted, and he committed a crime, and he went free for 10 years, and he threw a cigarette butt out, and they ran the DNA on it, and because the policeman, he threw it at a policeman, the policeman ran the DNA on it, and they found out he was a murderer, and another man was serving prison time for the murder. So you just never know. I mean, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
I agree. The thing is, we definitely will look into that. But, like as I said, the Innocence Project, they told us they were going to hire a private investigator for them, and then they didn't, So we were on that road to doing it, but then, it didn't happen. So, that is a thing I will talk to him about. You don't just talk to him about it, David. Let me give you some further instructions, and take it from a wise old man. When you get an opportunity, you write a direct message inbox to my wonderful friend Dr. David Rumey, right? Okay. And you take whatever help that he has the time to offer you.
And also, Carvin, we have a friend in California who should have been on this show with us. You know who I'm talking about? The former policeman.
Oh, Alex.
Alex. It would have been very nice to have Alex on this show with David Stinson to hear his view, because he's a former policeman and he knows a lot about this evidence. So anyway, I know Alex, and I will contact him on Facebook. But in the meantime, send me that information you have, and we'll get going on it, David.
Okay, yeah, I definitely will.
I can't make any promises, but I promise to do what I can, which is what's that banging?
Fireworks. It's bonfire night here in the UK.
Bonfire.
Bonfire night. Yeah, don't you have bonfire night in the States?
Bonfire. Only
Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes.
Oh yeah, he tried to blow up Parliament.
That's right. So every year, the 5th of November, people are letting off fireworks all over the place.
No, that was a crime of anti-Catholicism.
It's something I don't normally have much to do with myself, but yeah.
Well, the real story of that is the guy was a fox.
Yeah, he was that. But the children love it, so that's what's all important. Anyhow, getting back to the heart of the matter, there are avenues that we can go down. It's pretty evident to me that your father is serving time in jail for a crime that he did not commit, and he should not have spent one day in there, let alone the 24 years that he's already spent. And every day he spends in there after today is a day too long. So we need to do whatever we can. We need to pool in together whatever resources that we've got. We need to start getting people talking to one another and seeing if we can't start getting this thing moving and shaking in the right direction to bring your father home sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I agree. I agree 100%. My thing is that, I've reached out to a lot of people and I've gotten a lot of responses from people from other places. But far as here where it really needs attention in Michigan, I really haven't been able to connect with anybody, somebody that could really bring it to the forefront here where it happened, Yeah,
the most difficult and awkward thing is when we're from poor backgrounds and we don't have much financial support and resources. It's very difficult for us to be able to do the things that we would really want to do, and then we're always reliant on someone else to be carrying that forward for us, and then grateful for whatever time that they can apply to it. Well, it's been long enough, and I think whatever we can do as a show, whatever we can do as individuals to come alongside you, support you, encourage you, advise you, and move this thing forward. I would like to come in on this too. My heart is going out because I am sick and tired of hearing innocent people suffering when they don't have to. When we're living in a world of corruption, when justice is corrupt, when the courts are corrupt, when the DOJs are corrupt, when the prosecutors are corrupt, when the police are corrupt, and we have our people rotting away in prisons on death row. Some of our black folk are dying in jails for crimes that they didn't commit. It's got to come to an end. It's got to stop. Enough's enough, and we've got to start using every resource available to fight back.
And also, David, let me tell you something, and Kervin probably knows this too. Every person you tell this to, you're going to get 1,000 opinions, some sympathy, some incredulity. You're going to have people say, well, if he's in jail, he's guilty. But mostly you're going to get opinions. So as you go about liberating your father, the important thing is to be able to separate the wheat from the chaff really quickly. You have to, this person is giving me opinions, but he's not going to do anything. So you've got to be able to say pretty much within the first 5 minutes, is there anything you can do to help me with this cause to liberate my innocent father? If they say, well, I just don't know what I can do, you say, gosh, I thank you so much. I'll keep you posted. Get off the phone and go to the next. Because you don't need to waste time. You don't need to repeat your story. When you find out he's a Schlappschwanz, you know what a Schlappschwanz is?
No.
That's Yiddish for a guy who can't get it up. When a girl finds out he can't get it up, get out of bed. In other words, don't keep talking to somebody who isn't going to be able to help you.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I've made you laugh than anybody you talked to lately.
Yeah.
That's
so
what,
yeah,
I tell Kervin. If I come to England, you got to buy me dinner on Piccadilly, and he always says, "Well, I don't know," and I stay here.
Well, and that's another thing. I've seen. They have those. Here they have a thing to where as soon as a crime happens, they post the person they're going to try, for the crime, and instantly, without anybody knowing the facts or anything, they automatically assume that the person that they've arrested is guilty. And I'm like, after understanding and learning my father's case, I just shake my head because I'm like, wow, people are so quick to just judge the person who they've arrested without even knowing anything. They just going off of assumption and believing that the cops are always correct when they're not.
Well, guys, we've come to that time where I'm going to encourage you to give you your last thoughts before we end the show. Again, I cannot emphasize enough just how angry is the wrong word, but mystified as to how your father could have spent as much time in jail as he has for what is so evidently and clearly a miscarriage of justice. But David, Stinson, if you can give your last thoughts, we really would appreciate that. How can people help?
Just take the time to listen and read, and if you know anything or have anybody in mind, let me know. As you said, we're not turning down any help. So, anything is good at this point.
And David Ramey, the final thoughts with you, sir.
Well, I think that when we consider matters like this, we have to look beyond the individual, because justice is not something that should be given only to the rich and the powerful. And frequently they don't get justice, because if they did, they wouldn't be rich or powerful. And it is not something that should be given only to the poor. And frequently what is called justice for the poor and those who don't have power, minorities who are not influential in their communities, is not justice at all. It is just a type of control. It's a type of oppression. And it's a type of injustice that is frowned upon not only by humans with a conscience who love truth and justice, but also by God himself. Because justice consists not in being neutral between right and wrong, good and bad, but in finding out the right and upholding it, finding out the truth and demanding it, and finding out the evidence and demonstrating it. Because wherever is found one wrong, there too is a wrong for all of the world. Yeah. And wherever one right exists, that is a right for all the world. Because it matters, as Albert Einstein said, in matters of truth and justice, there is no difference between large and small problems. For issues concerning the treatment of all people are always the same. And we know for a fact that people like Donald Trump can go bankrupt 5 times, can abuse women, rape a girl, commit crimes, lie, leave a trail of evidence, have a tape recording saying he grabs women's genitalia and then he denies doing it when 12 women come forward and accuse him of having done so. We know the rich and the powerful evade justice because of their money and their friends. But that doesn't mean we have to accept the injustice that the same system forces upon people like David Stinson's father, who has surrendered almost 25 years of his life away from his family, his son, his daughter, behind bars when he is a danger to no one in the world except the reputation of those police and those prosecutors and that lazy lawyer and that judge who didn't demand justice. That is who he threatens. And until we can overcome that bias, that bigotry, and that injustice, the harm done to the father of David Stinson is a harm done to each and every one of us.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate that. And again, we look forward to... I want to thank David Stinson for joining us. Our thoughts and our prayers are with him, his family, and especially go out to his father, who's serving that time. And we hope for a quick end to this incarceration and a quick return back to his family. Thanking David Ramey once again for his thoughtful, provoking statements. And we look forward to being back with you here again next Saturday on... Issues Today on World Jam Global Radio, where we will have Gilda Baker live, and we're going to be talking about the life of a young son, Diallo, whose life was cut short at the hands of police. And don't forget, we missed a week then, and then we're back on the 26th of November, and we have Jim Grey Wolf Petrucci, and he's going to be coming live from Standing Rock, Dakota, where we go to tackle the issues of the indigenous people and that infamous pipeline that they're trying to run through their land. We look forward
Kevin,
to
let me add, the next time we meet, which is next Saturday, we will meet knowing that Madam President Clinton is on the board to become our president.
Thank you very much. And on that note, we're out of here.
Bye.
I already did my time. I paid for my crime.
Once again, I want to thank my guest, Dr. David Remay, my sidekick and
Time. I paid for my
co-host, alongside David Stinson, who is representing